Why would we even want to develop an eco-consciousness?
And actually expand our spiritual beliefs and understanding.
Manage and care for the sustainability of those resources.
By becoming more aware of our impact,
Reframes the way we look at all of life.
we can begin to shift our actions in ways that provide alternative approaches that serve to protect our natural environment.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Truth Be Told. This is going to be a fun month. We're kind of mixing things up a little bit. We are looking into a subject called eco-consciousness, and we're actually kind of going to be following along with the book. So if anybody's interested, we'll put that up right now. It is a book titled Developing Ecological Consciousness: The End of Separation by Christopher Uhl. And what we're looking into, this is really just a month about nature, our connection to nature, and looking into our whole oneness with all that is. So for a lot of people, this might be a completely new subject for you, and it might bring to minds like image of environmental awareness, and it's using like the bamboo silverware and the paper straws and all that. Well, while those things all play into, a part of eco-consciousness, it is much deeper than that. It's really opening up to kind of a reverence of our union with all that is, that we are of this earth. The earth is of us. We are interconnected with all life on earth and all non-life, that this really is a living, breathing universe that we are part of. And so developing eco-consciousness is opening us up to bigger horizons, more learning more about our deeper nature and connection to all physical universe, and that there's a life kind of running through all of it, and that we are always, leaning into it. It's pretty interesting stuff. If you, trace like most, holidays that are celebrated around the world, especially like even in the Christian religion, they all kind of trace back to, pagan roots, back to nature, different nature philosophies and belief systems. That this isn't a new thing necessarily, but for a lot of people it is, because we have really gotten mechanized and modernized, and kind of, for a lot of people, myself included, we have lost a lot of that inherent nature and our connection, and just really celebrating it. And so I think, this month is going to really open us up to paying a little bit more attention to our environment, to the space around us that we share our time and, our beliefs with, and just opening up one more aspect of our complete being and seeing how this unfolds. Now, one other thing about this month, we're kind of playing around with the format for Truth Be Told. We are going to play through the recorded segments, and we're going to come back at the very end to dialogue about it. So stick through to the end, and always feel free to comment while you're watching. We'd love to hear from you. So sit back, enjoy this episode of Truth Be Told.
This month, we're exploring what it means to develop an ecological consciousness. And so whenever embarking on a possibly new idea or concept, I have found it's helpful to start at the beginning. And there's no better beginning than defining. So let's start with a definition. What does it mean to have ecological consciousness? And is that different from ecological awareness, or can these two ideas be understood as interchangeable? All right, so let's start with ecological awareness. Now, this tends to refer to education or knowledge. So to become aware in this sense is to learn or become better informed about how our specific actions impact our environment, the natural world, and the ecosystems it contains. So by becoming more aware of our impact, we can begin to shift our actions in ways that provide alternative approaches that serve to protect our natural environment. All right, let's move to ecological consciousness. Now, it's slightly different and a little bit more nuanced. To have have ecological consciousness refers specifically to a way of being. It's not necessarily focused on becoming better educated in the field of ecology and sustainability, but instead speaks to a different way of approaching, perceiving, experiencing, and interacting with the natural world around us. And so from this space, there is fostered a respect for nature and all the things that exist within it. Ecological consciousness becomes an internal process, an abiding understanding of our relationship to the natural world. Not as something that exists outside of ourselves, but instead as something that we live, move, and act within. And so this understanding then becomes the lens by which we see everything. And so this lens creates a deep connection to all aspects of life, even those we can't tangibly see. And it's in this that we're able to acknowledge our responsibility to and connection with the natural world. And so this connection serves as a guiding force, a barometer for engagement, and a catalyst for building systems that are mutually sustainable to all, not just from the space of surviving, but thriving. And so our first steps in that direction is to become more aware of our own current attitudes and activities. So let's start now. Over the coming week, begin to make note of small changes you can make in your daily routines that may serve to protect the natural world around you. Sometimes just stopping and noticing provides insights into these little changes that create big shifts. And before we know it, our whole perspective is changed, moving us toward the actualization of a world that truly works for all.
Why would we even want to develop an eco-consciousness? Well, let's just start by looking at like the practical. Industry, all these wondrous things that we were able to create and develop, all based on the resources of planet Earth. It's pretty amazing what we've been able to do. And if we'd like to keep on doing that for generations to come, it would behoove us to really manage and care for the sustainability of those resources. We can't just take and not end up seeing consequences of that behavior. So we have, really a responsibility to future generations from now to, ensure that we leave this planet better than the condition that it was in before I personally arrived. How can I do that? How can we collectively do that? These are questions that we really need to answer. I look at indigenous cultures, Aboriginal cultures, Native American tradition, all these ways of being. They understood something a lot deeper than most modern Western culture has. They had the responsibility to 7 generations beyond themselves, and they knew that there is benefit for all, including those living in the now. That when we learn to harmonize with our nature, with our environment, that we really magnify and multiply the resources that we have access to. So as we lean into some of these older traditions that have been around for eons, we have a lot that we can really learn from. So that leads me to my second point of why do we even want to develop an eco-consciousness? And it ties into an idea called eco-spirituality. So if you are somebody who is on that spiritual seeking path, there's magic to unfold when we deepen and open up to our environment. We can see how the universe and all the connections. There's been deep space pictures taken that amplify the dark matter and antimatter that is connecting it all, and it resembles so much the neural network that exists in our brains. It appears and is sensed by many people that we are living in a conscious universe, that there is an intelligence that underlies and goes through it all. Of course, we're human beings, and so we have this tendency, or at least, Western modern thinking human beings have this tendency to think that unless it demonstrates consciousness exactly like mine, then it doesn't exist. But, cultures have argued for, again, like hundreds of generations, that there is an intelligence throughout this all. And what's really interesting, if you open up, you don't even have to believe, just open up, be willing to be open-minded and see, invite the earth, invite the universe to speak to you. Watch what happens in your dreams. Watch what happens in synchronicities and coincidences out in the world. This is absolutely a vast, magical, mysterious universe and planet that we live on. And there, as we develop this eco-consciousness and awareness, knowing that we are one with it all, that our bodies are made of the same elements that exist throughout nature. We all come from the same, blown up supernovas of billions of years ago. We are all deeply connected, and when we just open up to a deeper willingness to see the sacred nature all around us, that we are part of the universe, the one song, the infinite nature of all that is, we really tap into the magic of thousands, millions, billions of years. And there's a lot to be said for that if you are on this spiritual seeking path. Oneness. We are one with it all, and the more we can develop our shared communion with our environment, our ecology, and all beings on it, including ourselves, we will all stand to benefit. So it's a responsibility to our sustainability and future that is some of the many reasons why we would want to develop an eco-consciousness.
Ever feel like you're stuck in the divide? Some of us are feeling it more and more every day, and it seems like no matter where we look, there is division and separation. So how can we heal the divide? Join us November 14th through the 17th for SEC's O-Shift Heal the Divide Summit, as we explore ways that we can do just that. Dynamic speakers, engaging workshops, and plenty of collective conversation. Stay tuned for more details, and until then, hang in there.
How is any of this relevant to what we usually talk about here, you might be asking yourself? Well, way more than I realized. Just like the principles and ideas that we talk about every week, adopting an ecological perspective of life reframes the way we look at all of life. At least probably for most of us, I would imagine. In fact, the two are so similar that a Venn diagram of them would almost entirely overlap. The core principles that support the necessity of developing an ecological consciousness are nearly identical to the principles of what we believe here at Soul Evolution Collaborative. After all, the Science of Mind was compiled in an attempt to make sense of the nature of the universe and our lives as people. So let's get into it. What are these Science of Mind principles, and how exactly do they support elevating an ecological perspective? Well, first, it might benefit us to look at it the other way around. The principles of an ecological consciousness can actually expand our spiritual beliefs and understandings. At least it has for me. So let's take a look at oneness, something that we talk about all the time. We even attempt, as challenging as it might be at times, to define oneness on a regular basis. It's everything, right? Like everything we have ever experienced or thought about, everyone we know, everything that has ever been or ever will be, all of that is one. And that sounds simple enough, right? But honestly, When it really comes down to it, we are missing so much context to even remotely understand the real truth behind these statements. This ecological friendly mindset offers a whole lot of context to support our claim of oneness. 13.8 billion years ago, an unimaginably dense golf ball sized thing poofed out all of the energy and matter that will ever exist in this universe. Energy and matter cannot be destroyed, nor can it be replicated, but it can certainly be rearranged. In Science of Mind, we believe in the immortality of life, that life does not end. Well, matter and energy do not end. In fact, matter and energy have been rearranging themselves over and over into stars and planets and galaxies since the beginning of their existence. So quite literally, everything that has ever been in existence, known and unknown, is made up of fundamental material that is as old as time, creating and recreating on and on. Another principle that we discuss all the time is wholeness. And if there were ever a way to make sense of wholeness, it is through this science of ecology. The human body is 70% water. The hydrogen molecules that make up that water, 13.8 billion years old, since the beginning of the universe. The oxygen that makes up the other part of that water, made in the collision of cosmic bodies and the massive heat created in the death of stars over the course of billions of years. We are literally made of stardust, the same ancient fundamental materials that make up the entire universe. Our bodies are made up of trillions of parts and pieces that make up the whole that is each one of us. And in turn, we are the parts and pieces that make up the whole of the universe. And this is true even mathematically speaking. The amount of matter that exists in the universe is directly proportionate to the force of gravity that exists. Add those two together, and the two numbers cancel each other out, leaving us with zero. The sum of the parts in this universe is mathematically perfect. The numbers into the hundreds of trillions. With those types of numbers, it would be hard to say that this universe is not abundant. While abundance, in the context of Science of Mind, is often equated to one's financial standing, abundance is actually about so much more than just our finances. There is abundance in every direction when we take on this ecological perspective. And perhaps the most fascinating demonstration of a Science of Mind principle is the reciprocal nature of the universe at play in our very own sun. We are so integral to the creative nature of the whole that the sun literally gives of itself 8 billion pounds of mass every second. And it has been doing so since its creation 5 billion years ago. 8 billion pounds every second for 5 billion years. Of those 8 billion pounds, about 5 billion of them are intercepted here on Earth to make possible the very life that we are a part of. We, in turn, become part of the creative process simply by living. We are so much a part of life that just by living and breathing, we are taking part in the reciprocal nature of the universe. The sun gives of itself in order for us to exist, and we give of ourselves to continue the creative process of life. Adopting an ecological understanding of this life and the universe that we are a part of shifts our whole perspective and relationship of human life to the world that we inhabit, and beyond, into the universe that we are a part of.
That'll make your head spin.
I know.
I mean, I could feel like the, it sounds kind of silly, but when you were talking, I just felt like this energy, this kind of swirling, like, I don't know, like I was in it. I was in the facts.
Right.
I was in all the numbers and the years and all the things that you were talking about. It was like I was inside of it. And I guess it's kind of what we're talking about, that we are like, this is the whole ecological consciousness perspective, that it's not, the universe and us, or Earth and us, but it's like this intertwining, like living in, as, and through sort of energy.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad it gave you that feeling, because
It
I don't know how
did.
to talk about those facts. Those factoids have always amazed me, but I don't know how to talk about them in a way where they don't just sound like facts. Like the ideas swirling around in my mind have this like full body experience of like we are so much a part of, like the us on the mountaintop being super important just like fades away and we're just like in of this thing. Yeah, it's got
Or
this
that we're
floating feeling.
or that we're even like in charge of or have dominion over
Right.
any
Yeah.
of that,
Yeah.
like we think we do.
Yeah. Well, that would be if I had two takeaways so far for the topic this month. One is the it kind of feels like pulling the pedestal out from under us. Like the throne that we sit in just got yoinked down to back down to where we belong. Like what's that expression about getting your bloated nothingness out of the way?
Right.
I forget who said it, but anyway, yeah, I mean, it's kind of that like, and in teachings like ours in Science of Mind, it's really easy, I think, to make ourselves really important. We're the center of everything, and the universe exists so that we can attain the and amass whatever, all the toys and things and attributes and success and I don't know, just all this stuff, right? And it's like, oh, it's so not about that. It's so not about that. And the other thing I have taken away, which is something we've kind of been talking about for a while anyway, is this whole responsibility to
Mm-hmm.
and not responsibility for. Like, yeah, there are certain things in my life I have to take responsibility for, but it feels like we're stepping into a balance of needing to take responsibility to others, needing responsibility to the world we live in, to the universe we are a part of,
Yeah.
which is a whole new kind of experience for me.
But it shifts the focus a little, like when we think about like, I'm responsible for the environment, then it's like almost like guilt and blame. And, you are responsible to do, whatever steps that we, like we were talking about with the paper straws earlier. But then like that responsibility too, it's more about like, it's an honor, I get to do this. I get to care about this. Just leaning into that relationship that we have, that we, I would really feel blessed that, I feel better when I know that I am taking more like people into account, more life into account, and not because I feel like I have to, but because it's an honor to really feel that.
Well, I'm glad you said you mentioned relationship, because I think for me that has, well, so far, I mean, we're 1 week in, but for me that's what just keeps coming up. And I think just building on what we talked about all last month was like relationships, all different types of relationships, and this just kind of even expands that even further. When we talk about responsibility to something, there is that relational understanding, that relational energy exchange.
Right.
And so I think that just stepping back a little bit and redefining or relooking or uncovering or coming back home to the reality of our relationship to the natural world. I think, often we can go about our lives and, do our thing and just forget that we are like part of something. We live in something. I read, and I think it's in Christopher's book later on in the book. I don't want to give too much away.
Yeah, don't.
But he talks about this this shift of, we think we live on Earth, but actually we live in Earth, because the clouds and the sky, the thing that we think is above Earth, actually is part of this atmosphere. It's part of this thing that is Earth. So Earth is not just the the ground that we see, but it's also the atmosphere, the sky. Everything is kind of encased in this. So in essence, we actually live in the earth, not on the earth.
Yeah. Well, and then
so that shift of living in something, it has that different energy of cooperation, of relationship.
Yeah. And when you're talking about relationship, like to even take that the next step further, like we're not on Earth, we're in Earth. Well, the universe is not something out there.
Yep.
It's here.
Right.
Like this. The whole
it is
thing,
part
right?
of it, yeah.
Yeah, like we are a part of the universe. Is not something separate from us out there. It's not only is it not out there, it's not up above us, right? Like we just, again, because we've been, I don't know, trained, indoctrinated, domesticated, whatever, however we want to
all
term
of that.
it. All of it. Yes, all of it, maybe. To think that, we are the center of perception. And so because I am standing this way and that is up and that is down, the galaxy must be up there and blah, 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 right? But like the earth is spinning and tilted and turning, but rotating, but also spinning around.
Right.
A sun that is in a galaxy that is swirling around its own axis, which is part of like the whole move. It's like, what? I mean, there's no, like, what if our whole solar system is upside down in our galaxy, right? Like if there were an up,
right?
Maybe we're upside down, like the whole thing.
Sometimes I feel upside down. But I have one of those apps on my phone where you can see the constellations and the stars.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
You put it up and you see all of them, and then you put it down, and then I'm like, that is just wild to be like, okay, it does kind of like shake up our perspective a little bit, and I think that we're in need of some perspective shaking. I can speak for myself. I'm in need from some perspective shaking. And I think too, sometimes people think, oh, that makes me feel so small, like the world is so big and here I am so small. But for me, it makes me feel, when I can really understand my relationship to it all, it makes me feel like so expanded, like it's limitless, like these limits that we put on ourselves in this kind of whatever we like to do, that we create this separation from so many things in the natural world, or so many things in our lives in general, that creates the smallness. But when we can really realize that we live in this universe, this relationship of systems, that it is like, it kind of breaks the chains. It's like this limitless possibility. So this ecological consciousness really cracks open my awareness of connection and the reality that we are not separate. And I think for me, it just calls to continuing to remember this connection, and that we're not separate.
For me, that it speaks to that idea, and Dan alluded to it earlier, that like when we look at this vastness, and it makes us seem like like we are such a minuscule, tiny part of it, and and that causes a lot of people to like wonder, like, well, then what's the point? This doesn't mean anything to me. I'm so small. But I think when we appreciate and see that vastness, to me, it actually makes me feel, personally, like even more, not important, that's not the right word, but more like essential. Like all this is going on and it needed me. I'm here as part of all this.
Right.
And we're able to think and feel and breathe it. And so I think it just, again, it's mind blowing how amazing all of this is.
Yeah. Well, I think that that feeling of smallness that comes up, because I think it is common, like you both said. I think it just speaks to, our spiritual journey, uncovering that next layer, like the me that feels like I need to be really important. That's the me that feels really small. Right. But if I can uncover that next layer and dude, go sit out in nature and tell me you feel small. because it's not going to happen. Like you go sit, if you're really out sitting in nature and just like taking the time to soak it in, you feel so much a part of, all of a sudden your boundaries, like your skin, your sense of being expands to, you are the whole forest. I mean, like my sense of, my sense of being when I am hiking and walk out over, like come out through the tree line on some ridge and all of a sudden looking down across this canyon and then can see like forever. I'm not like, oh man, that makes me so unimportant, right? It's just like there's no space there. There's no room there to have the thought, the only thought for anyone standing there looking at this. The only thought that happens is, oh my God.
And it's such a natural, like, it's a natural feeling. We don't even realize it.
Yeah.
We have taken to feeding squirrels and birds here. And what began as just a few finches we've amassed a congregation of about 100 finches. And so, I'll throw out food and they'll all be, doing their thing and I'll be sitting outside on the porch and you can hear the noise and they're on the ground. And then, I'll walk, out into the grass and then they all flutter about and I'm like in this swirl, like it's Alfred Hitchcock kind of birds sort of thing. But it's like, I don't feel like me and the birds. It really has this energy. I know it sounds kind of silly, but it has this energy of just like this giving and receiving, this kind of, I don't know, it's and it's a beautiful experience. And I think that and it's not something that I like, grunt real hard. Okay, I want to experience it. Let's see if we can do it. It's not like you try. It's like this thing that wells up within you without you even realizing it, like a sunset, or like you say, the mountains, coming, out from the clearing of trees and seeing the valley or the vastness. It's like this natural stirring within us. And so it's like, well, then that must be our essence. That must be our home, that experience of wonder. And I know this, we're talking about living everyday wonder. Like it's built in. It's like this hardwired, we're like hardwired for wonder sort of feeling. And I think what better way to really grasp that than this understanding of ecological consciousness?
Well, and then I'm really excited to see where this conversation goes the rest of the month, because the next obvious step for me is, if I sit on the summit of the mountain and see the vastness and go, oh my God, and have a natural feeling that all of a sudden all of, like, it really is a feeling of oneness. Like for me, that's the closest sensation of oneness I think I've ever felt. And I've had it a couple times in that particular scenario. And yet it doesn't quite translate automatically to me and people. Like, you know what I mean? You come down off the mountaintop back to the people and it's like, okay. So it's like, if my physical boundaries can feel like they've been shed momentarily to be absorbed by the vastness and not feel less than, but feel all of a sudden like, oh, I am all of this, then wouldn't the same thing be true? Couldn't the same thing be true for us and people, where we have the experience of the boundaries being shed and not being less than, but then going, oh, wow.
All right.
Yeah, I am all of this. I am all of you. We are all, we are of, like, collectively, and that's where I kind of start to lose the words. Like, we are one thing, experiencing life from all of these points. Well, we are that, like, we really are so much more of the one thing than, I don't know. Is it a perception thing, or is it an understanding thing, and indoctrination, domestication? I don't know. But like, that is like, okay, how do we do that mountaintop experience, but with the people?
Yeah. And that's the journey, isn't it? That's the journey that, we've chosen intentionally to be on.
Yeah. Right.
Definitely don't have all the answers to that, but we're working on it.
We'll figure it out, would you?
I want to jump in there on that, Dan. When you were talking about, like, when you go out in nature and you like, say you emerge and you feel that space on the ridge and you're like, there's only one possible thing that you can feel. I'm going to be the devil advocate here, because I certainly agree with it, and I've noticed it. But at the same time, I've been out with people to where like I was so excited to show them like this view, and how like this thing that just like makes me get goosebumps, and like I'll like tear up a little bit, like, oh my god, this is
Yeah.
so amazing. And taking other people out, and they're like, yeah, it's all right. Can we go back now? Like
Yeah.
no, like are you serious? Like
If I didn't
and
say
it's like,
it, I'm if I didn't say, for anyone who's paying attention,
exactly.
Small
that's an
caveat.
asterisk.
Yeah.
And there have been
so,
times that I've been that person, like,
Sure.
is this what we came here for?
That's funny. Yeah.
right. And, at that same time though, like, so one, like to not like make somebody wrong that hasn't, like experienced that or felt that. And then also like for people that haven't, like, this is where this conversation I think is really, really important. And then that also brings to mind, the pale blue dots that Carl Sagan talked about, that, astronauts all talk about this similar experience, that when they get to that perspective from like the space station, or,
Yeah.
outside of the atmosphere, and then they see it, they say it's like a pneumatic experience, it's spiritual, it's like next level stuff. Like, what was it, which astronaut was it that went on to do the Institute of Noetic Science? I forget if that was Edgar Mitchell or another one, but that's, it was very scientific, pragmatic person that like 180 degrees, like, oh no, man, this is so much more. Our science doesn't even come close to, describe what is going on here. It's, that's the opportunity, I think, in learning and developing an ecological consciousness.
I think it's going to be a fun
month.
month. It's going to be a fun
Yeah.
month.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
My mind's already blown.
Yeah. Right.
And it's just the first week.
Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. We appreciate all the support. Look at our website. Go look up for the Summit 2.0. We are, bridging that divide. It's going to be a powerful week. We are excited about some speakers we are lining up. We hope to have you come along with it. Again, if you are interested in this book that we are following all month, it is, Developing an Eco-Conscious by Christopher Uhl. I forget the subtitle, which is The End of Separation by Christopher Uhl. Look into it. Here's a QR code to take you to a website. We're not like promoting it in any sense that we're getting benefit from it, but we are just inspired from it, and we think it'll be a lot of fun to explore it for the month. So we definitely have to give a nod and a shout out to this author. So I hope you enjoy this month, and open up, because there is a lot of magic and mystery out there, and the more we just open our mind to it, the more we experience. So thanks again for coming along, and we'll see you next week on Truth Be Told.